What's up, guys? We are back with a full slate of MLB action here on Sunday, May 19th. We had a pretty solid winning day there on Saturday. Not the best slate we've ever looked at, but we had 5 core plays. One of them did get postponed. It was going to be our biggest bet of the day, so that was a little bit disappointing. But we nailed the New York Yankees -1.5. The Phillies came through for us late in that game, so we got them. The Houston Astros did let us down. They weren't able to figure things out there against the Brewers, but the Oakland and Kansas City under came through. And yeah, that's a 3-in-1 day. We'll definitely take that every day of the week. 3-in-1 will make us a lot of money. Let's keep things rolling here with a full Sunday slate. Time to dive in and find that value, but first, do me a big favor and hit that like button. It's a great way to show some support for the channel and all the work we put in here every single day. If you're new, go ahead and subscribe. It's 100% free and can keep you from missing out on these picks. Our videos are sponsored by StumpTheSpread.com. Click the link in the description to go over there and join our free email list and check out our top confidence plays on all the major sports. Comment below with all the bets you're looking at today and we'll give you our best advice on all of them. We respond to absolutely every single comment, so let us know anything you want to say about my picks, these videos, or anything you see here. As always, our final picks will be down in the pinned comment below. Now let's get into our first game of the day. We've got the Boston Red Sox taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. The Red Sox are not having a great time right now, guys. They come into this one fresh off of a 4th straight loss. They lost game 2 of this series 7-2, so not a good pitching performance once again. They're hoping they can turn things around here, handing the ball to Nick Pivetta, who's 1-2 on the season with a 3.48 ERA. His last time out, he looked pretty good against the Tampa Bay Rays. He went 5 2/3 innings, gave up 4 hits, 2 earned runs, but he gave up 2 home runs in that game, so that's obviously not great. He struck out 8 in that one, so that's very solid, obviously, but his start before that, he got knocked around by the Atlanta Braves. But in his 2 other starts this season, it's only his 5th start overall for this game, guys. His 2 other starts were solid, but it was against the Oakland A's and the Seattle Mariners. So we're not exactly looking at him as an elite arm right now, but he's throwing the ball relatively well coming into this game. The problem for the Red Sox right now has been kind of everything. I mean, in their last game, they only scored 2 runs. Not great. The game before that, they scored 6, but they lost 10-6. So just not figuring things out, not hitting the ball they need to hit, not pitching well, just in general, just not looking too hot. Everybody that's been down in the comments saying how bad the Red Sox are, you weren't wrong, apparently, because this team is kind of falling apart. They're down to 22-24 on the season. The offensive numbers not looking too hot. They're exactly league average in terms of runs scored, and those numbers are all trending downwards, guys. I mean, they're 12th in batting average, but that's trending down. They're 11th in on-base percentage. That's not heading anywhere good. And they're 8th in slugging percentage. But, guys, I just not in love with this offense, not in love with this pitching staff right now. Nothing is really going the Red Sox way. And it's been the opposite for their opponent in this game, guys. The Cardinals have hit a little bit of a hot streak here. They've won 5 of their last 6. They're up to 20-25 on the season. Some of these, shakeups have been working out. We thought Contreras going out was going to be, a death knell for this team, but it hasn't been that big of a deal. And yeah, they're handing the ball in this game to Matthew Liberatore. He's going to be making the spot start in this one. He's been in and out of the bullpen this season. His last start did not look very good, guys. I mean, it was back on the 13th against the Angels. He gave up 5 hits, 4 earned runs in that one against a pretty light hitting Angels team. So that's not a great look. He's looked decent out of the bullpen, we'll say. His other start this season, he gave up only 1 run over 3 2/3. That was against the Chicago White Sox, so obviously not a very good offensive team, and it's kind of tough to know what we're going to get out of this guy. I mean, he's sporting a 4.56 ERA for a reason this season, so yeah, not super high on Liberatore, but the Cardinals' offense has been looking very, very good recently. They've scored 7, 10, 2, 7, 10, and 4 runs over their last 6 games. That will definitely work, especially when you're comparing that to where this offense was at, actually basically the entire rest of the season. They've been terrible, but we saw Wynn hit 2 home runs in this last game, and yeah, just in general, this team is finally hitting the ball. All their offensive numbers are still pretty low, but they're definitely trending upwards, and while I'm not going to look at this team as a big plus offensive unit, right now they're swinging some pretty hot bats, and looking at the numbers overall for this game, we see the Cardinals at plus 102, not a terrible price. I mean, they are putting a pretty questionable starter out there on the mound, though, and we see the Red Sox at minus 110. They're also not putting the best starter out there, and we've got an over-under of 8.5. Guys, despite both of these teams showing trends towards the under, I'm actually leaning towards the over a little bit in this game. So if you wanted to take the Red Sox under the impression that they're going to try and avoid the sweep here, that could definitely make some sense. But guys, I think I just slightly like the over in this game. But other than that, not a lot of faith in either side right now. Next up on the docket, guys, we got the Chicago White Sox going on the road to take on the New York Yankees. The White Sox coming to this game, not loving things right now. They've lost the first 2 games of the series. They lost 6-1 there in game 2. Just not looking great. We saw Louis Gill setting Yankee record records. I think it's a Yankees rookie record in terms of strikeouts. He struck out 14 in that game. And yeah, the White Sox are 14-32 on the season, back to their losing ways. They're hitting the ball in this one to Chris Flexen, who's 2-3 on the year with a 4.46 ERA. His last time out, he didn't look great against the Nationals. He gave up 7 hits, 3 earned runs over 4 2/3 innings of work. So not, a nightmare performance necessarily, but also not like super, super great. He's been pretty decent this season, but when you're pitching for the White Sox, you can't really expect any run support. And yeah, that's kind of gone back to being the norm for them. I mean, they've only scored a grand total of 3 runs over the course of the first 2 games of this series. So that's going to make winning games pretty tough. And yeah, going up against a Yankees offense that's so good probably doesn't have them feeling very optimistic. The Yankees come to this game 32-15 on the season, fresh off of just a dominant performance in game 2 and pretty dominant performance there in game 1. They're handing the ball in this one to Carlos Rodon. He's off to a 4-2 start with a 3.31 ERA, and he absolutely shut down the Minnesota Twins his last time out. He gave up 6 hits over 6 innings, only a single earned run. He struck out 6. He hasn't walked a hitter in his last 3 starts, although one of those starts was against the Baltimore Orioles where he got shelled. Maybe he should have been walking some guys, I don't know, but his start before this, back on the 8th against the Houston Astros, was also very good. So we can definitely feel good about handing him the ball, and we feel great here about the Yankees offense. Guys, they've been looking great. This is one of the best offenses in the majors right now. I mean, we see everybody, all the major hitters are swinging some pretty hot bats. They're 4th in runs scored in the majors, 3rd in on-base percentage. They're 4th in slugging percentage. Offensively, they're just a great team. I mean, 6, 4, 5, 4, 5, 10. That's their run totals over the last several games. This is just an elite offensive team, swinging some hot bats. They are mashing right now, and they're at home, so they've got to feel good about that. And yeah, guys, the odds makers are massive on the Yankees in this game. We see the Yankees at -300 for this one. The White Sox are +245. If you want to take the Yankees -1.5, it's still -135, so that's not super appealing. We've got an over-under in this game of 8 or 8.5. We're not too interested in the over-under. We do see the White Sox are 4-18 on the road, so that's an MLB worst on the road mark, and the Yankees are 15-6 at home. So, guys, I think we're just going to side with the Yankees -1.5 in this game. I don't know if this is going to make it into our pinned comment. We'd be asking them to get another dominant win, which obviously isn't out of the question with how they're playing right now, but I'm a little bit concerned about this one. Definitely check below in the pinned comment before deciding whether or not you're going to take this play. Next on the docket, guys, we've got the Seattle Mariners going on the road to take on the Baltimore Orioles. We saw Seattle got the 4-3 win in Game 2 of this series to even up the series at 1 game apiece. Well done by them. They're 25-21 on the season. They haven't been having a great time lately, but getting a win here against the Orioles is definitely a step in the right direction. They're handing the ball to George Kirby in this game. He's 4-3 on the season with a 3.58 ERA, and he looked very good his last time out. He went 7 innings, gave 3 hits and no runs while striking out 6 against the Kansas City Royals. That's a very good start. His start before that against the Minnesota Twins wasn't great, but his start before that against the Astros was very good. And just in general, this guy's been great, pretty much like the rest of the Seattle Mariners rotation. This has been a very good pitching team. And yeah, he's been no different. Throwing the ball really well right now. Their offense, on the other hand, though, not great. Obviously, they did just score 4 runs in this last game, but that's a pretty big offensive night for this team. I mean, in general, they're down to 26 in the majors in runs scored, 26 in on-base percentage, only 301 on-base percentage. That's not great. Team batting average is 24th in the majors. They're also not a great power team with a slugging percentage of only 374. Not a great offense, but they lean pretty hard on their elite starting pitching, and that's been getting the job done for them in general this season. They're hoping that can happen again here in Game 3 of the series, going up against the Orioles, who, yeah, probably not super pumped about losing that game, but they are still 28-15 on the season, and handing the ball to Dean Kremer in this game probably doesn't feel terrible. He is only 3-3 on the season with a 3.72 ERA, and he's kind of in a bounce-back spot, guys. He gave up 6 runs, 3 of them were earned, while striking out 10 against the Arizona Diamondbacks his last time out, but that's been a big departure from where this guy's been at in general this season, because he's been very good. I mean, he had a 7-inning 2-run appearance against the Yankees only a couple weeks ago, the start before his last start. So back there on the 5th, he went up against the Cincinnati Reds and gave only a single hit over 6 innings. The guy has been pretty freaking good. He just had kind of a hiccup his last time out, and yeah, he walked 4 in that game, which is out of character for him. So we're expecting something of a bounce back performance from him, especially against a Mariners team that obviously is not the best hitting team. So looking at the Orioles offense, though, you can count on them to put up some runs. Obviously, they only scored 3 in their last game, but that's kind of a down night for a team that's 8th in the majors in runs scored, 11th in batting average. Their team on base percentage isn't amazing, guys, but this is the top slugging percentage team in the majors with a slugging percentage of 445. This team can crush the ball. Gunnar Henderson is up to 14 home runs already this season with 30 RBIs. this squad definitely can hit the ball, and they're hoping they can get things going with the bats again, and the odds makers kind of think they will. We see the Orioles at minus 140, the Mariners at plus 120 in this game, and we've got an over-under of 7.5. It's a pretty low over-under number, but with these two teams and a couple decent pitchers out there on the mound, I don't really trust the number to go over, and I'm definitely not taking the under, so we're not interested in that. But I am a little bit interested in the Orioles minus 140. I mean, they're 16-9 at home this season, which is pretty solid, and the Mariners are only 9-11 on the road, so I kind of expect Baltimore to get the job done and win this game. Do I think this is going to be a pinned comment play, though? Seems like kind of a big ask. I mean, it's a tough pitching matchup for the Orioles, at least somewhat, so we'll have to wait and see. It's got a chance, though. Next on the docket, guys, we're looking at the Washington Nationals going on the road to take on the Philadelphia Phillies. We saw the Nationals take the tough 4-3 loss there in Game 2 of this series. They were right there the whole way, and they've honestly played the Phillies pretty close in this series, losing 4-2 in Game 1 and then 4-3 in Game 2. But at 20-24 on the year, the Nationals clearly are not on the same level. They're hitting the ball in this game to Trevor Williams, who's, man, he's been a great starter this year. He's 4-0 with a 1.94 ERA, and he comes into this game fresh off of not really his best start. It seems like a lot of pitchers have some hiccups here against the Chicago White Sox. I would guess they're probably not taking him seriously because they're so bad, but he only went 5 innings in that game, which isn't unusual for him. He's not going super deep into games, but 5 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs. Only a single of those runs was earned, though, so not an awful outing for sure, and it doesn't really mess up his numbers too much. He's looked good this season overall, but I will say he hasn't faced necessarily the toughest opposition. I mean, he does have a very good start against the Orioles, so we'll give him some credit, but not a guy that I'm insanely high on, but I mean, he's 4-0. Then he's got an ERA of under 2, and that's all for a reason. And the problem right now for the Nationals has been their hitting. Over their last 4 games, they've scored 3, 2, 0, and 0 runs. That's not going to get the job done, guys. This team is all the way down to 27th in the majors in runs scored, 27th in the majors in batting average, and they're 28th in slugging percentage. Like, this is just not a good hitting team. You cannot count on them to put up runs, and that is not the case for the Phillies right now. The Phillies, I mean, they have only scored 8 runs over the course of the first 2 games. Only 8. I mean, 8 will work. Most teams would be pretty happy with 8. But they're 33-14 on the season. They're handing the ball in this game to Aaron Nola, who's 5-2 with a 3.10 ERA. So that's pretty solid. He's coming off a complete game outing against the New York Mets, where he shut them out over 9 innings, gave up only 4 hits, while striking out 8. The dude has been great. I mean, that was kind of a bounce back from a mediocre start against the Blue Jays, but in general, he's been very good this season. No complaints from me about how Aaron Nola is looking, and no complaints with how the Phillies offense is looking. I mean, this team is 33-14 for a reason, guys. They're 2nd in the majors in runs scored, 4th in the majors in batting average, 4th in on-base percentage, getting on base at a .335 clip. That will definitely work. We see Bryce Harper's hitting the ball well right now. Clemens is hitting the ball. Like, everything is working out for this team right now. Like, no downsides for the Phillies right now. They're playing really well. They are taking advantage of some like weak schedule for sure. I mean, they played the Marlins, then they played the Mets, and now they're playing the Nationals. Like, not exactly the toughest teams, but they are taking care of business. Got to give them credit there. And the odds makers are big on the Phillies in this one. We see the Phillies at minus 238. The Nationals are plus 215. We got an over-under in this game of 7.5, so a pretty low over-under for sure. If you wanted to take the Phillies minus 1.5, you can get them at minus 105, but you're really banking on Trevor Williams to have a bad outing if you do that. And I mean, it's definitely possible, guys. I'm not insanely high on Trevor Williams, which seems weird to be saying with about a guy with a 4-0 record and a sub-2 ERA, but I'm just really not, and he hasn't pitched against a ton of really tough opponents this season. So if you wanted to take the Phillies minus 1.5, I guess you could. I'm probably not brave enough to do minus 1.5. I lean towards just taking a minus 238. I know that is not a very enticing price, though, so we'll have to see if this ends up in the pinned comment regardless, but it's got a small chance. I mean, the Phillies have been great for us all season long, so why would we abandon them now? We'll just have to wait and see if this ends up down there. Next on the docket, guys, we got the Tampa Bay Rays going on the road to take on the Toronto Blue Jays. The Rays come into this game fresh off of a Game 2 win. They won 5-4 in that one. They hit a go-ahead home run in the 8th inning, so they had to rally to win that game, but they'll definitely take it. They've been playing by far their best ball of the season here over their last, I'll say 10 to 15 games, something like that. They're 25-22 on the season now, and they're handing the ball in this game to Aaron Savale, who's 2-3 with a 5.83 ERA, and coming off not his best start. I mean, that wasn't a terrible outing. He went 5 innings against the Boston Red Sox, gave up 3 earned runs, gave up a home run in that game. He did strike out 6 and walk 0, though, so that's kind of encouraging, but we haven't exactly seen him be amazing this season. I mean, he's had some struggles against some bad teams. He's had some struggles against some good teams. He's had the occasional good outing, but I mean, when you've got a start where you only went 4 2/3 and you gave up 7 earned runs to the Mets. Like, I'm not going to be super excited to have you out there on the mound. The Rays offense has definitely been better, though. They've scored 5, 4, 7, 4 runs over their last 4 games, so that'll definitely work. Much better than they were looking at other points in this season. They're up to 18th in the majors in runs scored, 14th in batting average, so that's definitely promising. I think we're going to see this be a well above average offensive team, but I don't know, guys. They've kind of got their work cut out for them here with Savale on the mound, taking on the Blue Jays, who are down to 19 and 25 on the season. That can't feel great. They're handing the ball in this one to Alek Manoah. He's 0-1 with a 4.91 ERA. He's making his 3rd start of the season. His first start was an absolute nightmare against the Washington Nationals, but his second start, he cleaned up a lot of things, guys. He didn't give up an earned run in that start. He did give up 3 runs, though, on 4 hits over 7 innings. So not a bad outing at all. He struck out 6 in that one and walked only 1. So that was part of his problem against the Nationals. He was having some control issues. So we can definitely look at him as being in a much better spot in this game. And the Blue Jays bats continue to be a problem, guys. Over their last 3 games, they've scored 4, 3, and 2 runs. Like, it's not great. We do see Vladimir Guerrero finally rounding into form. He's up to batting 280. That's moving in the right direction for sure after he got off to a very slow start, but there's a reason this team is 29th in the majors in runs scored and 25th in batting average. They are 19th in on-base percentage, and I think these numbers will trend up somewhat, but this is not an offense I'm excited about at this point in the season and really haven't been all year long. And looking at the numbers for this game, we see it's pretty close to a coin flip. We've got the Rays at -112, the Blue Jays at -104, and we've got an over-under in this game of 8.5. I'm not too interested in the over-under in this one, but I am interested in the Toronto Blue Jays. I do actually like the way Manoah is throwing the ball right now. I think he's headed in the right direction. I do not really think Savale is headed in the right direction, and while I don't have a ton of faith here in the Blue Jays bats for very obvious reasons, I do think they're slightly trending up, and I kind of expect the Rays to have a little bit of trouble in this game. So go ahead and give me Toronto in this one at a very reasonable price. I think this actually has a good shot to end up in the pinned comment. Next on the docket, guys, we've got the Minnesota Twins going on the road to take on the Cleveland Guardians. We see the Twins now on a 5-game losing streak. They lost game 2 of this series 11-4, despite having a pretty solid starter out there on the mound. So I don't think they're going to be too stoked about that. They're down to 24 and 21 on the season, handing the ball in this game to Chris Paddock, who's off to a 4-2 start with a 4.89 ERA after getting just absolutely shelled his last time out. He got blown apart by the New York Yankees. He went 5 innings, gave up 12 hits and 5 earned runs. He only gave up a single home run, but he walked 2 and struck out 4, and yeah, just didn't look like himself. In general, recently, he's been very, very good. He did have a tough start against the Angels, and a lot of his success recently, I mean, he had a good start against Seattle, good start against Boston, blown apart by the Angels, and then a good start against the Chicago White Sox. So I don't know, guys. This dude seems like he's been getting a little bit lucky with his matchups, and that's not really what's been going on for the Twins offense, guys. They have just not been hitting the ball. They've scored 4, 2, 0, 0, 1 runs over their last 5. Like, things are looking kind of dark again in Minnesota. So we'll see what actually happens here. But yeah, not super high in Minnesota at the moment. And the Guardians are a team that's trending in the opposite direction. They're up to 29 and 17 on the season. They've won their last 2 in a row, and they've won 5 of their last 6. So have to feel good about that. They're handing the ball in this one to Tanner Bybee, who's 2-1 on the season with a 4.34 ERA, and coming off a very good start against the Texas Rangers. He went 5 1/3 innings, gave up 3 hits, no runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. Like, that'll work. That's a solid performance against not a bad offensive team, really. So definitely going to give him some credit in that one, and kind of just feel good about how this Cleveland team is looking at the plate. Also, I mean, they scored 11, 3, 0, 7, 7, and 7 runs. Like, that's pretty elite offensive production to me. And even with Steven Kwan still being out, I mean, he's probably getting fairly close, or at least remotely close, to making his return. Like, right now we're seeing he went in batting practice for the first time back on Friday, so there's some chance he'll be back in the not super distant future, but I mean, he's an outfielder, guys. He's going to need to be able to run pretty hard on that hamstring before he can come back. So we'll see when he actually comes back. But regardless, Cleveland's looking pretty good at the plate right now, and we actually see the odds makers not giving Cleveland that much love in this game. We see the Guardians are -116 coming into this one, and the Twins are +105. We got an over/under in this game of only 7.5. That seems like a pretty low number with 2, decent, but not I would say elite starters out there on the mound. So a little bit questionable there to me. Guys, I'm not super sure how I feel about Paddock in this one. I tend to lean towards the Guardians pretty hard. I mean, Cleveland -116 seems very playable. They're a very good home team at 14-6 at home, and they're definitely the team that's playing the best and hitting the ball the best. They're coming off of a big offensive outburst, though, so that makes me a little bit concerned, but definitely leaning towards Cleveland -116 in this one. Next on the docket, guys, we've got the New York Mets going on the road to take on the Miami Marlins. The Mets come into this game fresh off a 10-9 loss in Game 2. The Mets just cannot get anything headed in the right direction, guys. They're 20-25 on the season, handing the ball in this one to Sean Manaea, hoping he can get them back on track. He's 2-1 with a 3.05 ERA and coming off a great start against the Philadelphia Phillies of all teams. So that's very impressive, guys. He went 6 innings, gave up 4 hits, only a single earned run, and struck out 6 in that game. That is a plus outing there. Doing well against the Phillies is no small task. So definitely give him credit for this one. The problem lately has kind of been the Mets bats, but obviously they scored 9 runs in the last game and still lost. So yeah, not great. Not a great look for the Mets. Things just are not breaking their way right now, and they were probably hoping they could get back on track here against the Marlins, but this team is down to 22nd in the league in on-base percentage for a reason. They're 19th in runs scored. This is not going to be a great offense despite their little outburst they had yesterday. So we'll see what they can muster up in this game going up against the Marlins, who are now 15-32 on the season and are on a 4-game winning streak. Don't know how many 4-game winning streaks there really are going to be this season for the Marlins, so I hope they're enjoying this one. They're handing the ball in this game to Sixto Sanchez, who still hasn't registered a result this season and is sporting a 5.96 ERA. His last 4 outings have been starts, but they haven't really been amazing. I mean, he did have a decent start, we'll say, against the A's, but his last time out against the Detroit Tigers, I guess those runs really aren't on him. I mean, he gave up 3 unearned runs on 5 hits over 4 2/3 innings, but not putting up insane numbers, and not really a guy that I'm super excited to see on the mound if I'm a Marlins fan. And while their bats have been great lately, it's really weird. I mean, they pitched 3 consecutive shutouts, then have a game where they give up 9 runs and they still win 10-9. Baseball is a crazy sport, guys. So, I mean, maybe the Marlins offense is coming alive, but they're 29th in on-base percentage this season and 25th in runs scored. This is not a great offense. Looking at the numbers for this game, we see the Mets as pretty big favorites. They're minus 145. The Marlins are plus 132, and we've got an over-under in this game of 7.5. So the odds makers very clearly see this as the end of the Marlins' little run here, and I don't disagree with them at all. Miami is only 8-17 at home, despite this little run they've had going here. We also see both teams are showing trends to the over this season, so I do think the over is kind of live in this game since the over-under is only at 7.5, but I'm not going to be on the over-under, guys. I will be on the Mets minus 145. I don't know if I have a ton of faith in this game, but I think it's got a decent shot to end up in there. I mean, I really don't like Sixto Sanchez out there on the mound, so give me the Mets minus 145 with a decent shot to end up in the pinned comment. Next on the docket, guys, we've got the Milwaukee Brewers going on the road to take on the Houston Astros. Milwaukee comes in this game fresh off of a 4-2 win in Game 2 of this series to tie things up at 1 game each. The Brewers are 27-18 on the season and hitting the ball in this one to Colin Ray, who's 3-1 with a 3.45 ERA, and coming into this game fresh off of a weirdly mediocre start against the Pirates, and he's actually had 2 kind of not great starts in a row. I mean, a questionable start against the Royals. It was at Kansas City where they're very good, though, and then a home start going 6 innings, giving up 6 hits, 3 earned runs, and a home run to the Pirates. A not very good hitting team is a little bit concerning for me, and I'm sure for the Brewers in general. I mean, this guy's been good this season. He has had his awkward moments. I mean, he didn't have a great start against the Yankees back on the 26th of last month. So, I mean, Colin Ray, good. Probably not what we would call elite, though. And that elite is what we would call the Brewers offense, guys. They've scored 4, 4, 10, and 4 runs over their last 4 games. This is the 3rd highest scoring offense in the majors. They're also 3rd in batting average and 2nd in the majors in on-base percentage, getting on base at a 337 clip. This is a plus offensive team. No way around that. This is a team that can absolutely hit the cover off the ball, and they're hoping they can do that in this game against the Houston Astros, who just had their winning streak get snapped, guys. They lost 4-2 in that last game, which is unfortunate. We had more faith in Verlander than I guess we should have, but they're handing the ball in this game to Spencer Arrighetti, who is someone we don't have a lot of faith in, although maybe there's reason to have a little bit of faith in him. He's 1-4 with a 7.52 ERA, and his last couple of starts, I mean, his start against the Yankees wasn't great, but he's been mixing in some good starts with the bad for sure. He went 5 innings, gave up 5 hits, and 2 earned runs his last time out. It was against the Oakland Athletics, but we'll give the kid some credit here. He's battled back from getting off to just a horrendous start to his season, so the fact that he's still in the majors, he should be pretty pumped about. I feel like the Astros bats have come alive a bit, but they were taking advantage of some weak schedule there. I mean, playing against the Tigers and the Oakland A's, not exactly the toughest opponents. They're up to absolute first place in the major leagues in batting average, guys, hitting .262 as a team, 5th in on-base percentage, also 5th in slugging percentage with a slugging percentage of .416, and they're 12th in runs scored with .205. So we'll see what this team can do. If they can continue to put up runs, I think their pitching staff can cobble things together and be good enough. this team definitely still has a chance in the AL West. They're only 5 wins behind the Seattle Mariners, who are in the first spot. So we'll see how things go down the stretch. But the question is, how are they going to look in this game? And the odds makers like Houston this one. They've got Houston at -130, the Brewers at +120, and we've got an over-under in this game of 9, which I guess we shouldn't be shocked by since Ray hasn't been amazing lately and Arrighetti hasn't been amazing at all this season. But in general, guys, I'm going with the Milwaukee Brewers on the road. Getting +120 going up against Spencer Arrighetti is just too good to pass up on. While I'm not in love with Colin Ray here, I think he can at least keep the Brewers in, sluggy with a slugger's chance here. Go ahead and give me Milwaukee +120 in this one. I think they're in a pretty reasonable spot. Next on the docket, guys, we're looking at the Oakland A's going on the road to take on the Kansas City Royals. The A's are now on a 7-game losing streak after losing game 2 of this series 5-3. We saw the under come through for us in that game, so that feels pretty good. The Athletics are down to 19-29 on the season, and handing the ball in this game to JP Sears, who's off to a 3-2 start with a 3.96 ERA, and he looked very good his last time out against the Houston Astros, guys. He gave up 5 hits over 5 innings, only a single earned run, struck out 2 and walked 1. He's been pretty good this season overall. I mean, he hasn't been great against the great hitting teams, but I don't think the Royals really qualify as a great hitting team if you ask me. And yeah, looking at the A's numbers, they are definitely not a great hitting team, guys. They've had their moments this year, but they're 28th in the majors in on-base percentage, getting on base under a 300 clip, getting on base at 293 actually. That's just terrible. Like, runs scored 173, 24th in the majors. They're dead last in the majors in team batting average. Like, this is just absolutely not a good hitting team and not a great team overall. It's been nice to see them go on this little run here, give them something positive, but yeah, just in general, not too high on this team. A team I am a little bit more high on, though, is the Kansas City Royals, who've now won 2 in a row and 3 of their last 4. They're up to 28-19 on the season, only a single game back of the Cleveland Guardians in the AL Central. Pretty impressive. They're handing the ball in this one to Brady Singer, who's off to a 3-2 start with a 2.84 ERA, and he's coming off of probably his worst start of the season against the Seattle Mariners of all teams. He gave up 5 innings, he gave up 9 hits, 4 earned runs. So he did strike out 6 and only walk 1, but not his best stuff, obviously. I mean, and that was coming off a great start against the Milwaukee Brewers. So in general, this guy has been lights out this season. So I'm definitely expecting a bounce back from him. And yeah, the Kansas City Royals offense has just been very, very good lately. They're up to 11th in runs scored, 16th in batting average. Over their last few games, they scored 5, 6, 2, 4. Like, not terrible for production. This isn't a juggernaut of an offensive team, though. And it's a little bit confusing to me to see the over-under in this game at 9 or 8.5. We see the A's are +145 and the Royals are -164. Both of those numbers make sense to me, but with both teams showing at least some trends to the under and Kansas City being 29, 16, and 2 to the under this season, guys, this is looking like a great under spot to me. We're going to take under 9 if you can find it. Under 8.5 is fine too, but we're going to go ahead and lock in that under 9 for sure. I don't think we're going to see a ton of offense in this game, and yeah, 9 is just great. We would have taken probably the under if it was under 8. So definitely, if you can get 8.5, that's totally fine. We're going to lock in that under 9 and take this one all the way to the bank, we hope. Next up, guys, we're going to look at the Pittsburgh Pirates going on the road to take on the Chicago Cubs. We saw the Pirates take the 1-0 loss here in Game 2 with Imanaga just dominating out there as projected. The dude's just been so lights out this season. The Pirates are now 21-26 on the season. Handing the ball in this one to Mitch Keller. He's 4-3 with a 3.93 ERA, and coming off a good but like a little bit sketchy start against the Milwaukee Brewers, he gave up no runs but 8 hits over 6 innings and struck out 7. So he had to pitch out of some trouble, but he was able to do it. So we'll definitely give him credit. And he's looked very good over his last 2 starts for sure. He's had his bumps this season for sure, but yeah, looking decent right now, and that's not something we can say for the Pirates offense. They did look a little bit better before getting dominated by Imanaga, but over the course of the season, this is just not a great offensive team, guys. They did get off to that hot start, but that has all been gone here for a while now. They're down to 24th in the majors in on-base percentage, 26th in slugging and batting average. Like, just not a great hitting team. And they're going to need to score some runs in this game going up against the Cubs, who, yeah, their offense hasn't been looking great either. Don't get me wrong, but they definitely have the potential to score some runs here against Keller. And yeah, they're going to be handing the ball in this game to Jameson Taillon, who's 3-1 on the season with a 1.61 ERA. He finally had a bad start, guys. He was off to a crazy beginning to his season. His last time out, though, he got shelled at Atlanta, giving up 7 runs. 2 of them were earned on 7 hits over 4 innings. So the poor guy finally got touched up, but his numbers are good this season for a reason. He had a very good start before that debacle at Atlanta against the Milwaukee Brewers. So we're still pretty high here on Taillon. We are not, however, high on the Cubs offense, which has not been filling us with optimism. I mean, they scored 1, 3, 4, and 7 runs over their last 4. So not exactly a death spiral, but not exactly great. And we saw them get shut out in 2 of their games against Atlanta, so that's not amazing. And yeah, not a lot of positive things to say here about the Cubs offense. And looking at the numbers for this game, we see the Pirates are plus 108. We see the Cubs are minus 118, and we've got an over-under in this game of 7.5. I mean, I kind of like the Cubs in this one at home. They're a very good team. They're 14-8 at home. Pittsburgh, obviously not a great team right now, and they are 12-14 on the road. So I shade towards the Cubs here. Also, you could take a look at the under 7.5. I probably won't be on that one since it's only 7.5, but neither one of these offenses is looking great, and both of these pitchers are looking at least decent, with Tyone, I think, looking elite. So yeah, go ahead and give me the Cubs minus 118 with a bounce back here from Tyone. Next up, guys, are the Los Angeles Angels going on the road to take on the Texas Rangers. The Angels and Rangers are actually playing right now. They're playing a crazy marathon game. They're in the top of the 13th inning, tied up at 2 apiece. So who knows who's going to come out on top of that one, but I'll tell you what, both of those bullpens are going to have to be absolutely torched. So looking at the starters in this game is going to be very important because they're going to need to go deep into these games. Right now, it's looking like the Angels are going to start Jose Soriano, who's 1-4 with a 3.72 ERA and coming off of a pretty dominant performance against the St. Louis Cardinals. Obviously not a great hitting team, but still, we'll give him a little bit of credit. 2 hits over 5 1/3 innings is very solid work. He has had his problems this season, but not a ton of them, and yeah, he hasn't really let things get too out of control. The Angels' offense has been kind of good over the course of the year. I mean, it's really weird. They're definitely not as good as, they would have been if Trout was still in there, but yeah, I don't know, guys. Not a ton of great things to say about the Angels. I mean, there's a reason this team is 17-28 on the season. They're 14th in runs scored still, but they're down to 13th in on-base percentage, and that number's kind of been trending down. We'll just have to see what this offense can do in this game, going up against the Rangers and Michael Lorenzen. The Rangers come into this game. Obviously, their bullpen is going to be torched as well. They're hoping Lorenzen can go deep into the game. He's 2-2 with a 3.75 ERA, and his last time out, he looked amazing against the Cleveland Guardians. It's a game his team managed to lose 7-0, despite him not giving up a single run over his 7 innings. He only gave up 2 hits. He did walk 4, which isn't great, but yeah, in general, he looked very, very good in that start. A huge bounce back from getting shelled by the Oakland A's. And yeah, he's kind of been up and down this season, but his ups have been very high up. So looking at the numbers looking at the Rangers offense, they've been kind of good this year. I mean, it's hard to really pick out where they've been amazing. I mean, they scored 17 runs over just 27 runs over just 2 different games against the Oakland A's. So these numbers are a little bit juiced. I mean, they had a 15-run game against the Royals. So when they get up, they can really pile on, but how consistent are they? There's some question marks there. I mean, they're 8th in batting average, 8th in on-base percentage, so not a terrible offensive team by any stretch, but do they really deserve to be minus 160 like the odds makers have them? I'm not really sure. And in general, guys, I'm pretty sure I just want to stay away from this game. It's going to be so weird with the bullpens being torched. I don't know what's going to happen. If you're making me pick a side here, I do like the Rangers minus 160 a little bit because of how good Lorenzen has looked, but he's been inconsistent, so we don't know if he'll look good again. And we're scared away from the over-under because it's all the way up to 9, and we don't know who's actually going to be available to pitch in this game. So super weird spot. I'm going to be staying away from it. You're forcing me to bet it. I guess give me the Rangers. Next on the docket, guys, we got the Colorado Rockies going on the road to take on the San Francisco Giants. We see the Rockies, they just lost 14-4 in game 2 of this series, so their little streak there of weirdly brilliant play is clearly over. They lost 10-5 and then 14-4 in the first 2 games of the series. They are only 15-30 on the season, and handing the ball in this one to Dakota Hudson, who's 1-6 with a 6.13 ERA. He's coming off a decent start against the San Diego Padres, but in general, he has been pretty bad this season, as you could guess from his numbers, and not expecting miracles from him. Also not expecting miracles from this offense, who has not been amazing. I mean, they're tied for 22nd in the majors in runs scored, 16th in on-base percentage. They did have some highs there during that streak, and well, I don't think this is like a terrible, not the worst offense in the majors, obviously, but I'm not very excited about their prospects in this game. Going up against the Giants, who are up to 22-25 on the season. They've won their last 3 in a row, and they're handing the ball in this game to Jordan Hicks, who's a great starter. The guy's off to a 3-1 start with a 2.44 ERA. He's coming off a good start against the LA Dodgers of all teams, and he had a decent but not elite start against the Rockies back on the 8th, so we'll give him some credit for being in a decent spot against this team, but maybe not an amazing spot. But pitching well against the Dodgers definitely will give me a lot of confidence in you. And yeah, I don't have a crazy amount of confidence in the Giants offense in general this season, but over the last 2 games, obviously they're hitting the cover off the ball, combining to score 24 runs over 2 games. that'll definitely work. Yeah, this offense is hitting the ball weirdly great right now. They're not too worried about Lee being out for the season with shoulder surgery, apparently. But yeah, they're hitting the ball great right now. Can they continue that? Seems a little bit questionable, but going up against Dakota Hudson, that should be no problem at all for them. And looking at the numbers for this game, we see that the Giants are big favorites at minus 192. The Rockies are plus 168 in this game. We do see the Giants are 14-10 at home, so that's pretty promising. We've got an over-under of 8 or 7.5 in this game. I think you can go ahead and give me the over. I think the Giants are swinging some super hot bats right now, so give me over 7.5 as a small lean, and you can take the Giants if you want to at almost 2-1, but that's not super appealing to me. None of this is going to end up in the pinned comment. Last but not least, guys, we're looking at the Detroit Tigers going on the road to take on the Arizona Diamondbacks. These two teams are playing right now in the top of the 9th inning. Detroit is up 8-3, and they've got the bases loaded, so they probably are in pretty good shape here to salt this one away. They're going to be 23-22 coming into this game and have won the first 2 games of this series, putting up crazy offensive numbers, hitting the ball in this game to Matt Manning, who's 0-1 to start his year with a 4.37 ERA. His last time out against the Miami Marlins, he didn't look very good, guys. He gave up 9 hits over 5 2/3. Start before that didn't look good against the Cardinals. Start before that didn't look good against the Twins. Not really been a great story for this guy this season. I mean, he hasn't been able to get things right, and while the Tigers offense has been raking recently, it'll be interesting to see if they can keep that up. He is going to need some run support, it looks like to me, and in general, this offense has not been amazing this season, but they've been okay, and they can clearly expect to score some runs here against the Diamondbacks, considering what they've done over the first 2 games of the series. And yeah, Arizona can't be feeling great. They're going to be 21-25 on the season, hitting the ball in this game to Jordan Montgomery, who's 2-2 with a 4.76 ERA. He's given up at least 7 hits over each of his last 2 starts, and those were both against the Cincinnati Reds. Not exactly an elite offensive team, and definitely not an elite offensive team right now, so they probably don't feel super confident in him, and I doubt they feel super confident in their bats. I mean, they scored 3 runs in their current game, but 0 in the game before that, only 2 in the game before that, only 2 in the game before that. Not looking great offensively. This team got off to a hot start hitting the ball, but things have definitely cooled off right now, and the odds makers aren't really caring that much, it doesn't look like, in this game, guys. Or maybe this is just an indictment here of Matt Manning. They've got the Tigers at plus 130, the Diamondbacks at minus 142, and we've got an over-under of 8.5 in this game. Guys, I think you can go ahead and give me the over in this one as well. I mean, I'm not super stoked about this, and I'm not going to be putting it in the pinned comment, but I think these teams can expect to score some runs. I think Arizona can expect to win a game here and get this series a little bit back in hand, but in general, this is not one of the matchups that I'm more excited about on this slate. That's all the games we have for today, guys. Hit that like button for good luck on all of your bets, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Let me know in the comments any questions you have on today's slate. Thanks for watching. You can click the link in the description to check out stumpthespread.com, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for more sports betting action.